The Rouge Rugby wishes to send their condolences to the family and friends of Stephen Taylor and all those who have lost loved ones during the flooding in British Columbia. If you wish to help those affected, you can make a donation to one of the many charities helping out via canadahelps.org. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. I am Stu Hardy, joined as always by Derek Brissett. Derek, there's been a lot of news going on this past week. This is what happens when we record on a Tuesday and all the big news comes out from Wednesday. But how you been, man? How's it going?
Been good. It's as you said, it's been a very, very busy week. Lots of major Arrows news, lots of major news from around MLR. Plenty of, obviously international games on this weekend. You are probably 50% happy and sad based on the results of your Welsh team there. Roman Nitimak, probably the greatest non-try that has ever not been scored. So I mean that was a crazy play too. So quite a bit of excitement. There's quite a bit of excitement from the autumn test series going on. I've had it's been kind of funny though, because I need to get a new phone. My phone has been brutal and it's quite old and has finally decided that this was going to be like the week or so that it's going to like die. So I haven't been able to use like half of the apps on my phone properly. And one of those is Twitter. So it's like every day I've been like coming home and like get like Wi-Fi and get back on my laptop or whatever after work. And I'm just like, okay, like let's check in on like the MLR news. And it's just like, this guy's been traded here. This guy's been traded here. This guy re-signed here. This guy's going to Europe. This guy's coming from Europe. This guy's, this guy is coming from Europe. And then he's also been traded and then traded back. And a whole bunch of crazy wild signings. And it's kind of the it's fun. It's the probably one of the off season feels like it's really kind of heating up now as teams are getting closer and closer to kind of getting to the point where they're ready to announce the full rosters, or we're kind of getting a better idea of what everybody's full roster is going to be. So it's been a lot of fun, but hopefully I get that new phone soon and can actually enjoy it in real time instead of just being bombarded at the end of the day with 12 signings and 4 trades.
Yeah, well, there's a term in Formula One when the drivers move from teams to teams, or if new engine suppliers are coming in. It's called silly season, and it definitely feels like MLR is in the midst of silly season at the moment. But while there is a lot of talk about with trades and stuff and things coming out of the blue, we're going to start with something that we knew was going to happen and was set in stone, and that is the match between Wales women and Canada women, which took place on Sunday. And for a time being, especially I'd say like the first hour of the game, looked like it would be Wales's game to have, but the final score, Wales 7, Canada 24. Yep, like I said, they were behind the majority of the match. They were able to score 1 try, but Wales with the conversion led. The big news from that game being Captain Olivia de Merchant was red carded in the 33rd minute. She is obviously has to face a citing commissioner. The date hasn't been announced for that as yet. But from the 60th minute onwards, it seemed to be that fitness came to be a major factor in what would decide like the victory for these teams. And interestingly, I've been saying that, the reason why England are doing so well, England women are doing so well, is because they've had the Six Nations, they've had the Premier 15s. And it's not as though the Welsh women are just sitting around twiddling their thumbs as well, because they have players in the Premier 15s and they've been competing in the Six Nations as well. But it did seem to be that from the hour mark on, Canada just seemed to have the better fitness, and that clearly showed with the 3 extra tries that were scored that won them the game. So that was Courtney Holtkamp, Delanka Menin, Sabrina Poulin, and Pamfiette Boisa. and then Alex Tessier kicking 2 conversions to get that 24 points. Derek, what did you make of this game?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good game, actually. I know we'll talk about England and stuff after, because I know you kind of mentioned them there, but yeah, I thought it was a great game. Obviously, I don't want to say necessarily Canada struggled in the first half, because I don't think that's an accurate thing to really say. But obviously, they went into halftime trailing, right? They were down 7-0 at halftime. Position that they're not necessarily in. Couple key players not in the lineup for this game for various reasons. But I think kind of seeing when the Marchant got her her red card, that was kind of like, that was a very interesting moment. It's kind of interesting though, because it's like, it's one of those hits where I'm like, I that's probably a red card, but I feel like it's also one of those hits that I'm like, I really like that rule that the MLR used for the 20-minute red card, because it kind of feels like there's a difference between, say, like what Demarchant did in this game and what I can't remember, the Argentinian player that got red carded against Ireland, where it was just like a complete cheap shot on a vulnerable guy in the ruck. It kind of feels like, the same punishment for those two things is kind of a little off, I think. But either way, so Demarchant gets her red card, which was really unfortunate because she looked to be like one of the better players for Canada during the first half. And, it's one of those plays where she's just trying to make a tackle and, it ends up a little high. But, I do really, as you kind of said, I think the fitness of Canada, I think, kind of really came into play. Obviously, Busa coming off the bench, she had a huge impact in the second half too. So that also helps when the reserves can come in and make a really big impact. Kasel, who had to replace the Marchant, like, she played really well throughout the rest of the game as well. And I think, as you kind of said, right, one of the things that Canada, I think, did really well in the second half was what Wales were getting penalized a lot. They had a lot of discipline issues in the game.
Yeah.
But Canada would never let them like settle down. You know what I mean? Right. So, pretty much on the vast majority of them, Peltier took quick taps on almost all the penalties and never gave Wales that chance. I think, like, if it's just like sensing that like you have a fitness advantage, but it's like they never gave Wales like a chance to like catch their breath or anything. And in all honesty, if you're taking a lot of penalties on defense, it's probably because you're tired, right? So
Yeah.
able to kind of just like sense that and start, just gaining a lot of meters just off immediate quick taps. And obviously the forwards doing great work to, once they got down the line, a lot of pick and goes, a lot of just breaking down that Welsh defense, to enable the, all the try scores to kind of cross over the line, right? So there was a lot of players, I thought, that just, especially just like the way they were carrying the ball, was insane, right? Like especially the center, Sarah Teljuvi, she had a number of just like crazy, like, I'm going to run this ball right through you, you're going to fall over, I'm going to keep going and run over whoever happens to be the next person in front of me, style runs. And I thought like Canada was able to really play off of that sort of, using players like Caljuvi, Busa, Holtkamp had a couple really big physical runs as well, and using those players to, kind of break through the Welsh defense, but then also having the backs be able to take really quick advantage when the defense broke down, and you end up with, like, Poulin's try, where she kind of, the forwards do all the work, they suck in all the defense, and then once the forwards are in, we're sending the ball out wide, and Poulin's dancing around the only winger that's in position to even it's even remotely in position to stop her, and she's like, trotting in for an easy try, right? So yeah, like, I thought it was great. I thought it was great. It was nice to see. It's nice to see too, like, I know obviously like England's been like annihilating everybody,
Yeah.
but it's also good to see like a game like that too, where just from the perspective of like, as you're trying to build a team, you're trying to build towards the World Cup next year, get a win in, a game where you're down by a converted try at halftime. You're playing with 14 players for 50 odd minutes in this game. Right. And, you have to kind of figure out how to kind of overcome that and win the game. You're missing some of your best players too, right? And figure out a way to like kind of grind out a win. And I think too, like in the going into the second half, like the big halftime adjustment of just like, let's, instead of being the typical team that's down a player and being like, all right, we'll play defense, we'll take the points when they're on offer, hopefully the other team makes a mistake and we can like, chip over some points and, or we can capitalize on a quick mistake and maybe get a try. But it was like Canada was like, nah, we're going to just all out attack Wales, and Wales is never going to touch the ball in this half. And, that aggressive style is something that you really like to see. And also like just a super physical game, and like nice to see too. It's like, hey, like, it's sometimes like red cards are tough, but it's like nobody on Canada looked like deterred or like nervous and stuff. And they kept the physicality up all the time where, sometimes players might be a little like on edge or whatever about maybe, you don't want to get like another card or something because, you're already down to 14 players. Right. So nice to see like the physicality stayed up high the entire time. The ball was, Pelche, I thought, was doing a really good job of like distributing the ball, going to the backs when it was needed. The forwards, some really great runs. Busa got that player of the match performance, coming in with in the 68th minute. They gave her the player of the match still, because I mean that's how good those 12 minutes were, I guess. So it was a pretty impressive 12-minute run there. So sorry, that's not when she came in. The 68th minutes, when she scored her try. I am mixing up the numbers that I am looking at here. Yeah, so where I should get that right now that I completely butchered it. When did she came in the 53rd minute. The 53rd minute. At some point. Yeah, exactly. So there we go. We all make mistakes right here, Stu. The 53rd
still 27 minutes on
27 minutes for the man of the match, or the player of the match performance is pretty solid. And I mean fully deserved, because she was amazing when she came in. Real big boost of energy for the team. Yeah, lots of players I thought played really well. Menon had some really, like, obviously she had a try and a handful of like really nice counter rucks and things like that as well. So it's nice, and I think it's good momentum building, I think, going forward into next year, preparing for the World Cup, which apparently the entire goal is for the rest of the world to figure out a way how to beat England.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually one negative from this weekend, is that whilst Canada were playing Wales, France were playing New Zealand, and they got their second consecutive victory over New Zealand. So unfortunately, that puts France to third in the world rankings and moves Canada down to fourth. That's it. Canada won the game, but Canada were playing Wales, who were 11th in the world. It's not the same as second and third. But this is temporary. As soon as Canada get to face New Zealand, Australia, and the USA in the Pacific 4 series, I'm sure they'll be rising up the chart back to number 2.
As soon as they win the World Cup, they'll be ranked number 1 anyways.
Exactly. So who cares about now?
Exactly. It doesn't matter. The World Cup champion is ranked number 1 until they are not the World Cup champion anymore, regardless of what the actual World Cup rankings say. So. Just get
fair enough. Right, we're gonna
also France had a pretty good weekend against New Zealand.
Yeah, because they literally did the double. But no, that was the women's game. Obviously, congratulations on getting back-to-back victories over the Black Ferns. But for the first time since 2009, France men have beaten the All Blacks, and what a game to show, because this is also going to be the opening fixture of the 2023 Rugby World Cup.
Good.
So it's going to be the same stadium, same teams. Maybe the All Blacks will want to wear black this time, but no, that was an amazing game. If you haven't seen it already, the highlights are on YouTube, both regular highlights and extended highlights.
There's also like 5-minute multiple angle videos of just that one Nitimak play where he ran out of the back of the try zone.
Yeah, That's going to go down in history as a try that never was. But
I was going to say, Squidge has a 45-minute long podcast where all they do is talk about that one play.
Yeah, and with good reason.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's like, it's entertaining. It's not like it's a bad podcast. It's like, no, this deserved 45 minutes of discussion. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to leave Europe now. We're going to come back to Ontario, back to Toronto, because we have signing and trade news. So first up, we have the announcement of new signing is Weta Tafuga has signed for the 2022 season. So Weta comes from New Zealand. He's taken up one of those international spots. He's played in the Heartland Championship with Wairarapa Bush. Definitely butchered that. And, he is coming in as a center. So that's interesting to see. We're going to be mentioning a center in a moment. But there has been the second trade in Toronto between the 21 and 22 season. And that is a trade with Los Angeles. So Toronto have received the rights to James O'Neill, the Pacific Pride captain, who was drafted by LA in the collegiate draft. They have also received an increased salary cap, and Toronto will receive the third round 2022 draft pick from Los Angeles. So what did Los Angeles receive in return? Well, they have received a certain Mr. Ben LeSage on a 2-year contract. So the co-captain for 2021 is heading out west, and Ben is joining the Guiltinis, which is, I've been looking at this from like an objective and a selfish point of view. And from a selfish point of view, it's no. I mean, obviously, and the annoying thing is that the only chance we as Toronto or Ontario-based fans will get to see Ben play is only going to be on screen, because I can't afford to fly out to BC, and that game is being held at Starlight Stadium.
You can drive to New York or something. Do they play New York? I don't even know. I should check that before I say it. But
yeah, I could, but I'm still waiting on my.
You could just go to LA. That's an option too if you want to see Ben LeSage play. Just go.
Hey, if LA. I can't even get out to Langford, I doubt I can get out to LA. Anyway, the point so from a objective overview kind of thing is that we all know that Adam Ashley Cooper retired at the end of last year. He's moved into a senior coaching role instead, but that still leaves a big hole at center for someone to fill. So you have to say, like, okay, who is going to replace Adam Ashley Cooper? Who's going to play in a spot which was occupied by a guy who's been to multiple World Cups, has competed against the All Blacks and South Africa and stuff? Who fits that bill? And you say, oh, it's Ben LeSage. And you're like, yeah, I agree with that. That's fine.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think, like, yeah, for LA, if you're going to lose Adam Ashley Cooper, you might as well go out and acquire the first team all MLR outside center to replace him. So I mean, like, Ben LeSage was voted as determined to be the best outside center in the league last year with Adam Ashley Cooper participating in that league. And but like, that's LA still has that scary backline, right? Like, you got Billy Meeks and Ben LeSage in the midfield right now. And
Billy Meeks, who is off to Dubai to play with Australia for the sevens out there.
No, craziness.
So, maybe in the twilight of his career, but definitely not losing step as if he's keeping up with the sevens.
So that's going to be LA had a scary back line last year, and looks like they're going to have just as, if not more, terrifying back line. But like, kind of like you said though, right? Like, I think from this perspective of LA fans, you're looking at, how do you replace Adam Ashley Cooper? They probably how do you replace Matt Giddow, the handful of like the guys that they have to replace on their team, as guys have retired or moved on to other leagues or whatever other reason. But I think from the same thing, it's like, Arrows fans are kind of also like, so Ben LeSage has been traded for the rights to James O'Neill, salary cap space, and as you mentioned, the third round pick next year. right? And obviously O'Neill's a flanker, and he is one of, if not, one of the best Canadian rugby prospects going right now. And which is probably why LA wanted him, right? He's one of the best amateur players in the country, and he'll get a chance to go pro with Toronto now. But like the one thing with that though is obviously O'Neill's a flanker, right? And he plays in the back row. So I think in looking at this trade too, it's like your immediate reaction is also like, from an Arrows point of view, much like LA fans have been like, okay, who's going to replace Adam Ashley Cooper? They got their answer in Ben LeSage. We get our answer of who's going to replace Ben LeSage also immediately in the same press release with Weta Tafuga, who by all accounts is a phenomenal center as well. So I think signing Tafuga is what really makes this trade work, because I think that would be a difficult thing to give up Ben LeSage without knowing who you're going to have in your midfield as well, right? So who will be the player that is filling the void left by LeSage, who obviously is the captain of the team as well, right? So that can maybe lead to another discussion or whatever that we can have later based on some of the re-signings that the Arrows have had of who might fill that vice captain void, because I think he might have signed during this run too. But so I think it'll be interesting. I don't know as much about Tafuga as I would kind of like. But I think one thing that is kind of interesting is that YouTube is a lovely place. And if anybody is kind of interested in watching him play, the league that he played in New Zealand actually has all their games uploaded on YouTube. If you want to go and check them out, if you're curious on who the new Arrows player is. So if you go to the YouTube channel, and it's a long combination of letters here, but it's WFRTV-Rugby Heartland is the name of the channel. And they have all of the Heartland Championship games. You can actually find their websites too, and they have all like the actual stat sheets and everything. So he scored a couple tries this year. He scored 2 tries in 7 appearances, and then the year before he had 4 tries in 11 games. Really big physical center. I think I want to kind of take a little bit more of a deep dive into watching all of these games to kind of learn more about the way that he does play. But like, looks like he's going to be bring that kind of like that physical ball carrying style that the Arrows are looking for and that they're going to need this year. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the move. Like you said, I think LeSage is a very popular player, so obviously there's always going to be a little bit of the heartstrings that get tugged at when popular players do move. But I think like I'm super excited to see James O'Neill, and oh my gosh, the Arrows backline is going to be so good. Because we'll talk about some of the signings that are also going to make the Arrows backline so good coming up in a minute here. But it's like the Arrows backline is going to be insane. It was insane last year. It's going to be insane again this year. And O'Neill's hopefully going to be a huge part of that. Still has to technically officially sign with the Toronto Arrows. They haven't actually announced that he's signed yet. They just traded for his rights. But so I think that's gonna be super fun. I think one of those things too, it's like in evaluating trades in MLR, I'm always curious as to how much salary cap space was actually traded. Just because I think like that impacts the trade, right? Like, yeah. But it's like every time it has been salary cap, it's all it says is just salary cap considerations or salary cap increase or something along those lines, right? So it's it'd be and in all honesty, it's for nothing other than sheer curiosity as to what that number actually is. But this, I think, in just speaking on like MLR trades in general, because obviously there's a couple trades this week, and I think I'm going to kind of we'll probably circle back to them, but like Will Leonard has been traded from Rugby ATL to Rooney. Tom Brusati has been traded to Dallas from New England. Obviously, there was the big one with Nola in Seattle, where Aaron Matthews and Devereaux Ferris plus salary cap space go to Nola for an extra foreign player slot. And like, it's so much fun to watch, but I also think that, like, I know, and it's like I love seeing these trades, and it's like I love seeing kind of the debate around it, around, like, fans going on to, like, Reddit or the Facebook group pages or whatever, and kind of being like, is this a good trade, is this a bad trade? And I think if you're an MLR GM right now, this has to be so much fun. Just
Yeah,
right.
I mean, even from a fan perspective, because obviously
It's fun. Yeah.
When the trade came out about Ben LeSage, there was the question of like, oh, who does this benefit more? Because when it was the Kyle Bailey trade, it was like, oh, who benefits? Oh, it's Toronto. It's clearly Toronto.
But,
it's not a trade. It's a steal. How is this allowed?
The thing with that, though, is there are certain trades in MLR that are done for the benefit of the player, for like personal reasons and stuff. So some that could may cloud judgment on certain trades, right? So you don't have to necessarily get the pitchforks and torches out for every trade that you don't like. Because you don't
come on, Derek. This is the internet. We've already got our pitchforks.
I'm just saying you don't necessarily know the story behind every trade.
Of course. I mean, but I think it's just fun, considering, like, especially the gap between the 2020 and 21 season being as long as it was because of COVID, the limited information that fans get from MLR, and then we obviously can go into like wild speculation. No, this is the thing when you're British and you don't have these kind of trades in like European sports.
See, but that's kind of, I think, the point that I was initially trying to get to before. But I think, because you're saying that it's like, you're coming from Europe and trades aren't really necessarily a thing and stuff. And I think you have some GMs from other parts of the world here where like maybe trades aren't a thing, but in North America, trades are definitely a thing. And they are a super fun part about being a sports fan here. But I think, to me, like, the reason I was initially like, if you're an MLR GM or director of rugby, this has to be so much fun. Just because I think the current 13 GMs are gonna, like, especially with trading players and stuff, it's like they have an opportunity in this new league to do something that the GMs in all the other sports right now can't do or never get the chance to do, which is like they get to determine the market value of the players and trades, right? Because there's no precedent for it, for like any, like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, what's a foreign player slot worth? Well, apparently to Seattle, it's worth Devereaux Ferris and Aaron Matthews.
Yeah.
Right. Versus,
well, that's the thing. Even like last year when it was the draft and LA traded both their picks for foreign player spot. And now it's completely changed.
Yeah, exactly. In the same draft, Houston traded both of their picks for Robbie Povey, who ended up being their starting fly half, right? So it's like there's been different trades that have been worth, it's like, 2 draft picks, that's worth a starting fly half. Right. And it's like you're seeing this trade that sends Ben LeSage to LA. And it's like, well, what's, looking at this, it's like, hey, what's an all-star center worth? Right. And they're like, well, you got a prospect, you got salary cap, and you get a draft pick. Right. And it's like, that's kind of like the base of like, hey, that's your all-star center. Right. And you know what I mean? And it's like, you're starting to get, I think that's the funnest part about watching these trades. Trades, one, are also like, they're one of those things that everybody always has the initial reaction to trades, but you're never going to be able to clearly judge a trade until like after the season or 2-3 years down the road to actually see how the trade actually panned out and stuff. If you don't believe me, Leaf fans, just remember that you loved that Andrew Raycroft trade at one point in your life. But that being said, Andrew, and then when he set the record for the most wins by a Leaf goalie in a season, you still liked it. It wasn't until much later where we're like, that was a really bad trade. But like, I think, so it's like, it's interesting to kind of see, but it's also interesting to see right now while we're getting all this info where it's, especially now that teams like Seattle, like NOLA, Toronto, LA, it's like, here's the details of the trade. that are like coming out and available, right? When you see like the full details of the trade, when teams are now announcing that, it's fun to see like where GMs in the league are valuing different things, right? And it's interesting. I think it's going to be super fun and really fascinating to see how trades and like signings and how GMs kind of in the league kind of go about this, to see like, where all the teams are really like valuing, like, what's going to end up being worth the most in the eyes of the 13 GMs in the league. What is kind of worth the least, right? Like, is there going to be like, to use a hockey comparison, is there going to be like the rugby equivalent of a right-handed shot defenseman, where if you have one, it's like having gold on your team, right? So it's like, you know what I mean? So I wonder if we're going to kind of see that. So it's like that for me right now is why, like, I'm loving all this, like all the trades. Like, honestly, every team, every GM right now, go out and make trades just for fun. Like, let's just to kind of see, because I think right now, like I said, it's like all 13 of these GMs, like you have like every other league, the NHL, the NFL, NBA, right? It's like they've been making trades in their leagues for like, I guess in Major League Baseball's case, probably like centuries, right? Like, it's just always been a thing, right? Decades of trades in all those leagues, right? To the point where it's like you kind of have an idea of what everything is worth, like, what you would classify as a good trade, what classify as maybe not a good trade. But it's like, I think in Major League Rugby right now, we get this fun time of, we get to watch all the GMs kind of figure out what everything's worth and make those trades, and all kind of determine what the market value of every trade is going to be, like, in real time. Right. So it's like, I guess we'll see how all the trades kind of work out. And then other teams might be like, yeah, like, maybe that, like, cause you know what? Hey, like, if that's what Ben LeSage is worth, maybe a team out there is like, well, maybe let's see if we can trade for Nanu or something. Right. And be like, we're going to base our offer based on what LA gave up for Ben LeSage or something. Right. Like, we get to kind of see what the market is. I don't know. I'm interested to see, I want to see more trades. I'm interested to see where this goes. I'm interested to see like how all the we even got like mid-season trades last year too, right? So it's like, I just want to see it all. So it's like, I'm excited. I love trades. Please make more of them. They're a lot of fun.
Well, no trades, but we do have a few signings and re-signings made with Toronto, because we had 3 press releases about announcements of Arrows players. So in the second announcement, we had that returning for his 4th season is Paul Cellini, who is the most capped Arrows player to date. And if he plays in every game, could be the first player to earn his 50th cap for the Arrows in 2022. We've been talking about draft picks. Well, the Arrows have now signed their first draft pick, which is Bryce Warden, is the first of the draft picks to officially become an Arrow. And after this player has been spending some time in France as a medical joker in the D2 for Province, returning for his 3rd season is Tommy Dellavega. Now, when you were talking about the back line and saying about potential new co-captains, was it Mr. Dellavega that you were hinting at there, Derek?
Yeah, it was. I think obviously, I think the Arrows really like Dellavega and everything that he brings to the table. And I mean, I have no idea who is the new co-captain is going to be, but in my mind, I feel like Dellavega would be one of those guys that is going to be in consideration for, getting that vice and or co-captain role. I mean, you also have Sam Malcolm, who's already captained the team, and Giuseppe Dutois, that's also captained the team too, right? So Arrows obviously have a really strong like leadership group still. So there's a lot of candidates there, but yeah, bringing Dellavega back is like, what a signing that is. That's unreal. I'm super excited to have him back. Obviously, like, we made a lot of discussion stuff about how insane Rumball was at the breakdown last year, just because he was just putting up video game numbers at the breakdown. But Dellavega, phenomenal in the lineout. His work rate is insane. He's just unbelievably talented, also great at the breakdown. Gets, obviously great at the breakdown, is unreal at the line out as well, both on the offensive side of the ball and on the defensive side. And like I said before, it just kind of brings all of that like leadership to the squad too. And yeah, so I mean, I'm fully on board for Rumball Dellavega in the back row again. And then, Ronan Foley also signed, traded for the rights to James O'Neill, who, as I said, one of the best prospects in Canada right now, also playing flanker. So I mean, that'll be exciting too, right? Like the back row looks nasty again. And it's been one of the stronger points of the team throughout their history, and it looks like it's going to continue that way, and mainly because a big part of that is going to be because Dellavega's back. So really that's what definitely one of the signings that has me extremely excited. And probably, yeah, I'm just pretty fired up for that one.
Well, we've been talking about the back row, but I think we need to talk about the rest of the forward pack with the final announcement that came today on Tuesday, November 23rd, of the signings. First up, utility forward Mason Flesch. He is re-signed for his second season with Toronto. Canadian prop Tyler Rowland. He is re-signing for his third season with Toronto. And another prop that will be joining the Arrows this year is Isaac Salmon, who has played with Tasman Mako in New Zealand. So, we were saying like the last season, there was concerns with the front row, especially in the prop department. It seems to me that Toronto is now addressing those concerns, and hopefully we won't get a repeat of issues in 2021 when it comes around to 2022.
Yeah, that's obviously, it looks like, I mean, this is the second prop that they've signed from New Zealand this year. They signed Sione earlier, and now bring it on Salmon, which is just the fantastic. Isaac Salmon is just a fantastic name.
I look forward to all the fishing puns to come forward.
Yeah, exactly. It'll definitely, there's going to be a podcast title in there at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, so like you bring in that, so it's like right now you have the group of props as of now sits at, on the loose head side, I think you got Keith and Sione. Tight head side, you got Roland, Salmon, Ouellette, and Warden. Right, so it's a pretty good group. It's a pretty good group, and like you said, it's like they had a little bit of depth issues last year. I think part of that though is definitely the issue with crossing the border during the height of the pandemic, or maybe not the height of the pandemic, but crossing the border in the middle of the pandemic. And the fact that they had to play the entire season in Atlanta, I think contributed to that. But it is also clear to see that it's like, they're going out and addressing that, right? So and they already did a little bit of, obviously earlier we're talking about Tommy Dellavega kind of being like an unreal weapon in the lineout. They added to that too, right? Like that was one of the areas of concern that we had throughout the year, and they picked up Kyle Bailey in the trade that we briefly mentioned when we were kind of discussing all the trades across MLR there, right? So this pack is really shaping up to be looks to be like a force to be reckoned with here. Going across like you said, it's like in the forwards right now, you got Keith, Sione, Roland, Salmon, Ouellette, Warden, hookers, Quatrin, McRogers, draft pick Mace still unsigned as of now. And so it's like there's a lot of, looks like there's a little bit of depth there. And then as you said, like the second row still having guys like second row having guys like Wadden, Bailey, Cellini mixed in there. And then the back row, as we mentioned already, Rumball Dellavega, Foley, hopefully O'Neill, hopefully hopefully guys like Vicolani and stuff are announced soon too. It'll it's a solid team. Or looks like a very formidable pack, just based on all the names that have been announced to have signed so far. and maybe even some guys that you can kind of look at and be like expect them to be back or whatever.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about signings and new guys joining the team, but now we have to move on to a big departure from the world of rugby, specifically women's sevens, and that is that it was announced in the past week that Ghislaine Landry has retired from rugby. Uh, Ghislaine Landry, she's incredibly decorated as it is already. 2013 World Cup 7 silver medalist, 2015 Pan Am Games gold medalist, 2016 Olympics bronze medalist. She's the first woman to reach 1,000 points on the World 7 Series and currently holds the all-time women's points record at 1,356 points. She has scored 143 tries, and so she's ranked third overall, 319 conversions, which puts her second overall, and she has played 208 matches and is tied for third overall. So Jazane posted on social media the following statement, accompanied with images of her time from when she was first selected to play for Canada all the way up until the Olympics. And this is what she said. They say you are a visitor in the jersey, and I'm proud to share this journey has come to an end. It has been an honor and a privilege to have played the game for so many years. As a kid stepping on the rugby field for the first time, I never could have imagined that what would transpire over the next 20 years, and I am deeply grateful. To everyone who has stood in my corner and supported me over the years, thank you for your time, energy, and belief. To my teammates, thank you for the laughs and the lessons, for celebrating the good times and walking through the tough times together. To my family, you've been there for me every single step of the way, and your support has been a constant source of strength. To my wife and baby girl, I am all yours now. G.
Yeah, no, just a unreal career from Ghislaine Landry. Perhaps it, you know, as you mentioned, all the decoration, the accolades, perhaps a disappointing way to end it, given how this year has gone both on and off the pitch. But I mean, at the end of the day, like there's no denying that she's if one of the greatest women's sevens players of all time. So,
Mhm.
it's just a phenomenal career all around. And it is kind of like looking at the world, like the all-time like scoring leaders. It's really cool to see a Canadian flag up at the top, right? So there's been a lot. It seems like there's definitely a transition period for both the men's and the sevens team, as after this year. And given the amount of retirements that have happened between both the sides. But yeah, Landry just absolute legend. And it'll we're probably gonna miss watching her on the pitch because there's obviously a lot of fun and great memories associated with her in the wearing that the red maple leaf in the jersey there.
Yeah, and if you're ever wondering of like, how can I show people just how good Jazane Landry was? It was last year that World Rugby actually put up a video on their social media accounts of Jazane's top 10 plays whilst playing in the Rugby Sevens World Tournament. And, she's iconic. She's been inspirational. She's obviously been Canada's captain for, so many years. And, like you said, there is a rebuilding phase coming on and, building towards the next Olympics, the next World Cup, which will take place next year. But to Jazane Landry, thank you for everything you've done in the Canadian jersey, and we wish you all the best in retirement. Now, some interesting news developments with Rugby Canada that was announced today. The Rugby Canada Board of Directors and the Chief Executive Officer, Alan Vanson, announced today that they have agreed to begin the transition of leadership at the organization. So, in layman's terms, that means the CEO, Alan Vanson, is stepping down. He will be in the position of CEO until I believe it is January 31st, 2022. So, that gives at least 2 months and a bit to work out who's going to come in as the new CEO. But we've been saying ever since Canada men's were eliminated from the World Cup, that change needs to happen.
Yeah.
And I could see how, it doesn't make a difference between the games with Portugal and Belgium, because that doesn't have any effect on anything. So we may as well keep what's currently existing going. But this now seems to be a step in a new direction, and hopefully the right direction, to get Canada out of this rut. It's also been announced through America's Rugby News that the thorough review of the high performance programs of Rugby Canada, I believe that's excluding the women's 15s, because obviously the World Cup was delayed a year. That review was intended to be completed in November, but the results are now expected in January. Derek, what do you make of this news?
I mean, yeah, like I don't think anybody's surprised by this, right?
No.
No, it's as you said, it's like we've been like the moment the final whistle blew in that game against Chile, the calls for change started. Um, Alan Vincent and obviously Kingsley Jones were kind of, the two faces painted on the dartboards, across the Canadian rugby community. And it is one of those things. It's like, it's obviously, we've been saying that it's like you need the change to happen, and Vincent's the first big change, right? And so obviously, it, like, I don't know how Rugby Canada was going to keep going with Vance in charge, or even I don't know how the men's team keeps going with Kingsley Jones as the coach either. But obviously this is the first major change that has happened. So at least it's step one, right? There's obviously a lot that still needs to be done, and hopefully, as you said, it's a step in the right direction. I think, um, you know, I think it was just I think you kind of look at, though, like the social media reaction to this, and um people are like online and stuff, and it almost seems like celebratory almost, with like like comments that are like on like the Rugby Canada, like where Rugby Canada posted the announcements and stuff. And I mean, I think it's just, yeah, like I feel like I don't know if it's just like pressure from the Canadian rugby community, but it's like the writing kind of really seemed on the walls and stuff. And it's I was kind of like, earlier, like last week, actually kind of reminded of a quote from Brian Burke, who was the GM for the Leafs when the Leafs really stunk. And although he has had a lot of success elsewhere, um but he actually has ties to like Rugby Canada and the Arrows as well, for like the rugby connection there. But back in the day, he was faced with the Leafs were terrible, and he was faced with the decision of you know what to do with a new coach. And so he fired Ron Wilson, and he had a quote in the press conference, which when they were talking about like how he came to the decision to and basically this came after there was a home game the Leafs lost, and the fans were just chanting "Fire Wilson" a lot. And he basically, his quote was like, "It would be cruel and unusual punishment to let Wilson coach another game at the Air Canada Center at the time." Right. And I think, honestly, I think that's the point where we're at here, where it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's, you couldn't, like, I don't think Rugby Canada, like, you look at like the way like this announcement is being received like on social media, is like you couldn't, every post that Rugby Canada has made, I don't know if you've been like looking at like comment sections and stuff, just to kind of get like the
I
vibe
think
of
for the prevention of
sanity.
deteriorating mental health, it's best to
Yeah, don't
avoid
look at comment sections.
when
Yeah,
need be.
but it's like like Rugby Canada's been like doing things like just announcing lineups, and it's like there's like comments about like Vanson and Jones
Yeah.
on them. They announced like a Black Friday like merchandise sale. There's comments about Vanson and Jones on it, right? Like, you know what I mean? And I think that's where we're at. It's just the temperature of the Rugby Canada fan base right now.
Yeah.
Um right? And
That rage is what's going to get a lot of Canadian rugby fans through the Canadian winter.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, from
Self-sustaining
that
heat
perspective,
source.
like I think you're kind of looking at like the temperature of the fan base, and just the constant pressure, right? It's like it would be. I think it would be really tough. It would have been. I think it would have been really tough for Vincent to continue just because of that, right?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, I'm not surprised. It's probably just step one. Um, but yeah, like I think at the very least, I think most people like this is obviously the performance of Rugby Canada on off the pitch over the past year hasn't been good, right? And a lot of changes need to be made, and this is the first major one. So we'll see what comes up. We'll see what comes up later. We'll see what else comes. We'll see if we get anything else, say, before Christmas, or if we have to wait till you said January when that review comes out.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
according to America's Rugby News, they say the results are now expected in
Now
January.
expected. Okay, so I wonder if it's because you said that they were supposed to initially know it in November. I wonder if they know it and are just doing a whole bunch of like we're making the
Delayed
decisions
press
and
releases
stuff.
and
Yeah,
stuff
then
like
we'll
that.
be like we'll release it once, maybe.
Possibly. To be honest, I think the original idea would have been that because by now
Yeah.
the Women's World Cup would have finished and there would have been able to do a review of all
Yeah.
four senior programs. Obviously, COVID has meant that that's not the case. So I believe it is just going to be focused on the men's 15s, the men's sevens, and the women's sevens programs. And I believe that there will be a review of the women's 15s program, but that will take place following the conclusion of the World Cup in 2022. But yeah,
Yeah.
but like you say, as in this
So
can't be the one thing; it has to be the
yeah, like
start of
it's
things.
yeah, which is fine. So I mean, um, yeah, it's I don't think any like I said, I don't think anybody's surprised by this, but yeah, like it can't be the only change that's made, but it's obviously it's a start, and it it'll be interesting to see who gets appointed to that position or who they hire for that position, or you know um yeah, like the process that's going to take place in order to determine who that individual is. So that does take over, because obviously it's a really big decision, and whoever is the next CEO of Rugby Canada is going to have quite a bit of work to do, right? To
Hmm.
kind of, because as we kind of mentioned before, it's one thing to like kind of be losing games or whatever, but it seems based on all the events that have happened this year that there is a little bit of a cultural issue at Rugby Canada, and the new CEO, like, there is gonna have to be the person that's at the forefront of changing that. So we shall wait and see who that ends up being.
Indeed. Right. We've got some other MLR news to go over. The first thing is now, this is where we normally talk about like people who have signed for teams or been traded to teams. But the first thing we're going to mention is Michael Smith. As uh, Canadian rugby fans will know, Mr. Smith got a red card in his match against Belgium. And it's now been announced that he will face a 2-match ban from that red card. So he will miss the first 2 San Diego games of 2022. Now back to our regular trades and signings news. As we mentioned before, Will Leonard has traded to Rugby ATL from Rooney. Tom Brassardi has been traded to Dallas from New England in exchange for salary cap. Tiana Erasmus has joined Rugby ATL from the Houston Sabercats. Now, the big trade, as we were talking about earlier, is Aaron Matthews and Devereaux Ferris, plus an increased salary cap, has been traded to NOLA from Seattle. Seattle, in return, receive an extra foreign player slot. Rohan Saifaloy has joined DC from Tasman Marco. Gideon Van Wilk has joined Houston from the Cheetahs in Curry's Cup. So that's another South African coming over to Houston. Why not? Sayaosi Mahoney has joined Houston from San Diego. Stan van der Hoven has joined New England from Bay of Plenty. Big Canadian signings now is Justice Cizeroux will join Ben LeSage at the LA Giltinis from Seattle, and Jake Ilnicki will join DC from Seattle. So, we started with a bit of negative news about Canadian being banned for 2 games, but finished with 2 well-known Canadian players leaving Seattle to join different teams on different coasts.
Yeah. So, okay. So, first question then. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of signings, a lot of trades. I guess before we kind of get into some of this, it's like, is LA now Canada West? Have they usurped Seattle for that title? Is that now the Western? Because they even have to play in Langford. LA even gets to play in Western Canada. Are they the new Canada West?
So you've got Cizeroux, LeSage, Corey Thomas,
and
DTH,
and Alana Gattinger works for them too. So the former team manager for Canada.
But isn't oh my god,
Mark Carter?
No, as a front row.
Oh, Lindsay
Stevens.
Lindsay Stevens. Yeah.
So that's 5 Canadian. You got to start.
Potentially,
all those
we
guys.
have. I think LA is supposed to announce the full squad soon or something. But
yeah, if Lindsay Stevens isn't in it, then we're going to be very disappointed.
That's are you? Is that what it is? Is it going to be? That's the wish list.
I'm not mad.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah. Oh, is that the wish list for Christmas? It's the Ryan James jersey in black and then the Lindsay Stevens in white.
You've been going through my stuff again.
No, it's the wish list for Christmas. I guess, have I been looking like through your phone? Is that what you're saying? What you're saying the notes for? I don't know.
What are you talking about? I have no idea what you. I
have no idea. Yeah, exactly.
Absolute nonsense.
You have like the kit release date circled on your calendar, so you know when to put in the purchase order.
My family's already asking me what can I get you for Christmas, seeing as due to my delayed PR card, I'm not going to be able to go home.
Oh, that's a shame.
Well, it would be a real shame if they don't announce what the new kits are going to be in time for Christmas. That's going to be the real shame.
Oh, I think, you know what? I wonder. I guess that's probably a thing that I guess is coming soon. I guess, I guess it would have to be, right? I don't know.
It really should be.
That would.
You got to get your kits in time for Christmas. The season starts February 5th, which means you need a good 6 weeks
it's called
wearing in your shirt to make sure it fits. And
it's called Kitmas for a reason, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So either way, I guess is I guess LA obviously a lot of Canadians. For you, they also have Ryan James, so I guess you're really stoked about that too. So yeah, they got quite a bit there. So yeah, I don't know. Like, have they usurped Seattle then? Especially now that Sears Duru went there, like they're taking the Seattle players too. So like,
well,
as of right now, Seattle has Penny and Larson officially signed.
Oh wow! Yes. Then.
As of right now, that's what Seattle has. They used to have like sets. They used to have a lot of guys. They used to have like Hassler, but
Hassler's down in Austin. I said
Ilnicki's now off to
Seattle,
DC. Sorry. He's joining Doug Frazier out there.
You gotta have at least 3 Canadians in the DC household now. I think that's that's now that Kieran Hearn's retired, they need another Canadian.
They need another Canadian boost. Yeah. So yeah, like I think Seattle, I think is one of those like teams that I'm really fascinated by, like just their off season in general. They've announced a few players that have signed or re-signed or were on multi-year deals or whatever. But I think a lot of the roster still remains a mystery. And kind of looking at like the past 2 weeks, it seems just like player after player signing elsewhere right now. So and then Alan Clark had that interview with Joe Harvey that's on the Major League Rugby website right now, and I believe he said like only 45-50% of the roster from last year is going to be coming back. right? So
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
very
I was
intriguing offseason from the Seattle Seawolves right now, which is also
yeah,
like
but
it's kind of crazy to think about how they're back. Like there's only been 3 full years of Major League Rugby, and they've won 2 of them. They have 2 titles in the 3 full seasons of MLR, and they're already, as you know, Alan Clark said in that article with Harvey as well, is like they're in like full like rebuild mode, and
oh
they're
yeah, like
realistically, I mean, I don't know how much we really count that 2020 season, but I guess they're 1 full season away from being back to back champions, and they're just in like, I mean, they were terrible last year, but
yeah.
like they're just in
Well, that's the
full
thing.
blow
If
it up
you've
mode.
gone from being back-to-back MLR champions
Yeah,
to winning, was it one of the 5 games in 2020,
I
and
think so.
then finishing lower than a team that had to relocate their entire operation to Atlanta, then
Well, I mean, they finished higher than Houston.
yeah, but Houston's also going through a rebuilding phase at the moment as well. But
Houston's still building the first time.
yeah, if they're always going through a rebuild, then is it technically a rebuild?
Yeah, no, that's just where you started from. The teams are only
But
4 years old, so.
But I mean, there have been some like big names that have been released from Seattle, like Shalom Suniluda,
Yeah, he
George Barton,
retired. Yeah,
Eric Deschel has been released from.
yeah, he's on like a leave of absence or something to that effect. But I remember seeing that. But yeah, no,
Yeah, but,
there's a lot
but
of guys that seem to be
yeah, because
kind
Eric
of.
Deschel, as soon as you see him, I'm like, yeah, Seattle player.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So it's like there's a lot. I mean, even it started last year too, right? Like there was obviously, a handful
Yeah,
of guys that left the team last year, right? So it's I don't know, it's very very interesting team. Um and then obviously, I go back to my thing that I said earlier about, you don't necessarily know all the details or all the reasoning behind the trades. But yeah,
yeah,
Aaron Matthews, Devereaux Ferris, and salary cap for a foreign player slot.
yeah.
So like,
So
I really wonder like who they intend to use that foreign player slot on.
yeah,
With like how talented that player might be.
yeah,
Yeah, so
exactly.
it is kind of a fascinating one. Is there anything else that really jumps out at you from this super super busy week that we've had?
I mean, I've just been all consumed by Arrow's news
I know. There's been so
of
much.
like,
I think Il Nicky fits really well on DC. I think,
yeah,
especially
that
with
was announced earlier
some of their
today,
props
which is great.
departing too.
Yeah,
I think that's a good move for him. Same with Sears Duru. I like him on LA. I think obviously, that'll be nice to get some Corbacero scrum coaching to
yeah, oh
some of the
yeah,
Canadian front rows. Um yeah, like Sears obviously he's been one of, Canada's best front row players for a long time.
but he's
So I
been
mean,
around for a long time as well.
but
As
hey, he's only like 27. He's has a ton of caps though. Like,
yeah, well, he's been playing since 2013 when he was
yeah,
just 19 years
yeah,
old, and
exactly. He's got a ton of caps too, right? So, um, yeah, but like you said, he's still only 27, man. He's got a lot of rugby left in him, right? So,
yeah,
Sears Stewart, yeah, in LA, as you kind of said, like it is, Houston loading up on a lot of South African players, which given the coaching staff and management that they've hired,
not
not
a
really
surprise.
surprising. I think Nola too. I think they're doing pretty well. I think I think that's a nice trade for Nola. Picking up, Aaron Matthews and stuff. To see that's right. Who, it is interesting to see, the team saying rebuild, but is also like we're trading away our first round pick from a year ago.
And it's not as though Nola were like miles off the pace.
No, yeah,
They
it's a
just
good
lost
pickup.
out in the final
Well,
game
like
of the season.
Nola lost Younger to the Free Jacks, so Devereaux Ferris is that's the guy that replaces Younger. Like that's a really good move from the team. It addresses an immediate need that was created earlier in this off season, right? So it's um it's so I think that works out really well for Nola, right? So and Dallas is obviously really busy too. Like they've been obviously they have they have the unique thing that of building the team from scratch again for the second time after initially not playing last year as originally planned. So it's like they're obviously super active too, right? So um it's a really exciting. I think it's really exciting though, just kind of looking at all the offseason moves in general, right? So yeah, like we'll I'm looking for hopefully next week just as busy too. Makes I love having a ton of stuff to talk about on the podcast. It's a lot more fun.
Absolutely. But one competition that's happening this week, we Canadians don't have to wait until 2022 to get rugby playing again. So this week is
Rugby never stops. It's just a different competition. It doesn't stop.
And it is very accurate.
Yeah, it doesn't stop. There's no break.
The rugby is officially going
like,
on forever.
I was like trying to be like, oh, I wonder when we should maybe like take a break for like the holidays and stuff. And I was like, there is games literally every weekend that we get. This doesn't stop. True. It doesn't stop. Do you want to? We could become a Premiership rugby podcast, or we're a top 14 podcast. A lot of Canadian guys in France. We can do that. We could just talk about French rugby for
that is true, but we'll be flagged by LRR anytime we mention top 14.
Oh, it's true. It's true. I have to
even glance at a top 14 clip.
Yeah, done. Look at the. We said the word top 14, so now it's the podcast can shut down now.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, the competition I was referring to was the Canadian University's Men's Rugby Championship, with matches beginning tomorrow. That will be Wednesday, the 24th of November, Friday, the 26th of November, and Sunday, the 28th of November. So by the time this goes out, it'll be the semi-final round. But the quarterfinal round is the UBC Thunderbirds versus the RMC Paladins, the Guelph Griffins versus the Calgary Dinos, the UVic Vikes versus Dalhousie RFC, and the hosts of Queen's Gales versus the Concordia Stingers. Derek, this tournament will be decided by the time that we next record, but who do you think is going to win the quarterfinal rounds? So not the overall winner, but who's going to win
just the quarterfinals?
Each four quarterfinals. So first up, UBC versus RMC.
First of all, Thunderbirds versus Paladins is the best nickname matchup we have going for any sport in this country. It's that's phenomenal. I think you gotta go. I think you gotta go Thunderbirds on this one. I mean, they've been kind of perennially like near the top, and I think like you can't bet against the Thunderbirds, maybe unless they're playing the Vancouver Wave, but other than that, you can't bet against the Thunderbirds. Vancouver Wave aren't in this though, so they're fine.
No, that's not. Well, they're not a university team, so
no, exactly. Hence why they're not in this.
Okay, next up we have Guelph Griffins versus the Calgary Dinos.
Guelph I think had a really good season in the OUA, so I think I think I'll stick with. I think I'm going to go with Guelph. I think Guelph might have a shot at winning this whole thing too.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Third match: UVic Vikes versus Dalhousie RFC.
So I'm looking at the next matchup of Queens versus Concordia, and I feel like I'm inclined to take Queens. So I'm going to take Dalhousie in this game, just because I don't want to pick the favorite in every single game because that's really lame. So
that is very.
So I'll go with Dalhousie. That'll be my token upset there.
Okay, the token upset. So we're gonna have semifinals including Thunderbirds, the Griffins, Dalhousie, and the.
Do you still have the toonie?
I don't have it on me at the moment. I'm afraid. So, but that's the thing. By the time this comes out,
can you get it? We can do that. We can toonie up the entire tournament right now. Get the toonie to predict the whole tournament.
I'm not entirely sure I do have it anymore. It may have been given to the Canadian Red Cross, or the Canadian Royal Legion. That was it.
That's a good use of it. It should be in the World Rugby Hall of Fame and Museum.
It should, but I have a loony. Because it's a reduced tournament, we'll use a loony. How about
A
that?
loony? Oh, okay. Yeah, amateur tournament. So it's a loony. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go with heads are those teams that are ranked 1 through to 4, so the current home teams, and tails will be the designated away teams. So head for the designated home, tails designated away. So first up, are you making a record of this, Derek? At any?
Yeah, I'm just making sure I have the actual bracket pulled up here. All right, just to see. Okay, I got the actual bracket. The bracket that is on the Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship Facebook page, just to make sure we do this right.
Okay,
so we got a loony though. We got the loony.
It's a loony.
It's not a
so
toonie.
because it's not a professional tournament, we're only using a loony. So we have the first round is Thunderbirds versus Paladins. So we'll have heads for the designated home team and tails for the designated away team, and we'll work it out through that. Okay, so Thunderbirds versus Paladins.
Let's go.
Is going to the Paladins.
Paladins, all right.
Next up is the Griffins versus the Dinos. And that is going to the Griffins. Third up, the Vikes versus Dalhousie is going with the Vikes. And the hosts, Gales versus Stingers, is going with the Gales. So the major upset is in game 1 with the Paladins.
Yeah, so it's like they want the they like that. They 8 to knock off the 1 right away. All right, so we're gonna do. I feel like we need to do this entire tournament now with the Looney.
Yeah, that's fair. So
all right, so we got Paladins versus Queens.
Paladins.
So go Queens heads, Paladins tails.
Queens heads, Paladins tails. Queens.
Queens advances. Okay, and then we would have Griffins Vikes.
So Griffins heads, Vikes tails.
Griffins heads, Vikes tails. It is.
It's going Vikes.
Vikes. All right. Queens versus Vikes. We'll give Queens head. We'll give Queens heads because that's the actual queen on the coin. So I feel like that makes most sense. And then Vikes. I have no loon connection to Vikes, so we'll go with.
It's not the queen, therefore it's a loon.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Okay, so this is for the Men's University Rugby Championship. It's going to Queens.
Queens. All right. So Queens, according to the Looney, Queens University will be the 2021 Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship. The Looney did quite well during the MLR season, so I'm curious to see if the toonie did quite well. I'm curious.
The toonie did quite well. Can the Looney hold up? We will have a toonie for the new season of MLR.
Yeah, can the Looney live up to the legacy that has been left by the toonie that apparently has now been donated to the Royal Canadian Legion for a poppy that I don't even see on you? So I'm not really sure what you did with that.
Looks can be deceiving. I may have just donated it out of the kindness of my own heart.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Actually, that's probably nicer.
Exactly. Well, if you want to watch the Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship, you can for free, even better. Where can you watch it? Well, it's thanks to our old reliable network. The Rugby Network is showing all these games. And the entire tournament is being sponsored by the Toronto Arrow. So, obviously, this is going to be the next generation of Canadian players coming through. This is a time to see them before they turn pro. So get to watching. So where can you watch rugby this weekend? Well, as we just said, you can watch the Men's University Rugby Championship on the Rugby Network, the Premiership, and returning for round 6 of the URC. That will be on Sportsnet. And we also have the return of the World 7 Series. And you can catch the first round of the Dubai Sevens on CBC. Well, Derek, it has been a bumper episode this week. I feel we've had a lot to talk about, a lot of news to get through. And I'm really grateful that as we are approaching the Thanksgiving weekend in the United States, I'm thankful that MLR and all their teams decided to release their news on Tuesday morning instead of Wednesday, so we could talk about it this week.
Oh, you know, there's going to be something huge that drops tomorrow, anyways. I just realized I was like, this week has been so busy that we didn't even talk about the Dubai Sevens.
Exactly.
That are happening this year. That are obviously they're happening. It's a thing. Sevens is back. Like I said, rugby doesn't stop. There's no off season. It doesn't take a break. There's also the World 10 series is playing in Portugal this weekend,
yes,
which is
true.
also a thing that we did not talk about at all. I saw a couple roster announcements. They did like a little draft thing. I think Doug Frazier is over there. Ollie Knott's over there. Kainoa Lloyd's over there. I'm sure Andrea Burke is over there. I'm sure there's a couple other Canadians that I'm missing. I'm trying to
Robin McDowell is coaching one of the teams out there as
okay,
well.
there you go. Yeah, so there's I think DTH is coaching somebody too. I saw like an Instagram story that he had sent flying over to Portugal. So that's obviously something else that you can watch this weekend too. But I think it just this week was madness. This was a pretty busy week. But it's what it is what makes the world of rugby so exciting sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, something else that we haven't mentioned is this is our 99th episode, which means that next week we will be celebrating 100 episodes of the Rouge Rugby, and we have something special for you. But if you want to find out what that is, you're going to have to tune in next week. That's it for this episode. As always, you can listen to previous episodes on Spotify or Anchor FM. You can also find us on all social media platforms at the Rouge Rugby. Derek, where can people find you on social media?
Same as every episode. Every time you ask me, it's at Brissette the Jet on basically everything. So that's where to find me.
Well, I'm more exclusive. I'm on Instagram and Twitter, but you can find me at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. That's H4RD.
Why don't we have a La Rouge Rugby TikTok? How come you haven't done that yet?
I don't know. Why haven't you done that yet?
Well, it's because you're supposed to do. I do like the audio and the video stuff. You're supposed to do like the social media things. Where's the
you do audio video stuff, and you're asking me about a TikTok.
Yeah,
which is audio visual.
No, it's different. It's different.
I don't know. Maybe that'll be our 100th
You could flip the toonie
well.
on TikTok. You can do all the toonie predictions on TikTok.
I suppose we can. But that will be for next week. We hope that you can join us for our 100th episode. We look forward to you joining us then.